I'm Chris Como, and we're back with Swing Expedition at Hawks Landing in Orlando, Florida. And we have a special guest today, Sean Foley. Sean Foley is one of the top instructors in the game, having worked with players such as Justin Rose, Lydia Ko, Danny Willett, and Cameron Champ. Plus, like myself, Sean is one of the few lucky folks who's gotten to spend time coaching Tiger Woods, having worked with Tiger from 2010 to 2014.
At the end of the day, I mean, yeah, they might be a pro golfer, right? But they're a human being. You know, the honesty that's necessary, the communication. So having a trust with one another that you build over time. But they're still just golfers.
Sean's work in the game isn't just limited to professional circuits, though. He's also intent on growing the game through young golfers. Sean is a part of the advisory board of the Bridge Golf Foundation, a foundation that offers golf instruction and educational programs for young men in Harlem. In 2017, he partnered with Eagles Dream to found Sean Foley Performance, a full-time residential junior golf academy program that offers training to all levels of young golfers.
I get these young players now who come to work with me in their early 20s. And I mean, if all I did was teach them what I learned from Tiger, how to practice, why to practice, what type of stuff to practice, I mean, that's just gold for them, right?
Sean is a good friend of mine, and I can attest that he has one of the brightest minds in golf. However, he recognizes that while information is more readily available these days, getting better isn't just about how much you know.
You know, early on when we started on the PGA Tour measuring,
-0.3,
we kind of had a scarlet letter on our back by the old paradigm. Golf's a game of feel, it's a game of rhythm and tempo. It is, I'm not saying it's not, but that's now like way more acceptable. So it went from being made fun of using a TrackMan on the range to now tripping over 100 TrackMans every time I walk to go over and say hi to somebody. But that being said, you know, Hogan said you got to dig it out of the dirt. That's still very applicable.
We're in Orlando, Florida. We got a really special episode with legendary coach Sean Foley, longtime student Ryan Corbin. Sean, where do you want to start?
You know, we obviously spend a lot of time in big words and big concepts, right? And I think you really push the envelope on that true understanding. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to get people to hit the ball better and have more enjoyment doing it.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, you know, starting with Ryan when he was 12 years old, that's been now 21 years. Where has my mind went? What do I think matters? And I think as you start to get into the complexity of it, you start to make it more simple. What are things we don't really see solid to consistent ball strikers do?
I think this is a really good way to frame it, right? Because if someone were to be like, what do you think is important in the golf swing, or what happens with like great ball strikers? I mean, they're all over the map, right? Like how many different swings have we seen on the PGA Tour perform at the highest level? But if you were to sort of take it from another direction of what are things you don't really see good ball strikers do, you can start to kind of narrow away sort of like no-go zones, if you will.
All I know is whether I have a player who is a 20 handicap or a tour player. When they're not hitting the ball well, they feel like they have no time and they feel stuck.
Okay.
And then when they're hitting the ball well, they feel like they have time and they have room. And there's not enough time in life. So what's the sequence of time? Why do they feel like they have time? So my point is, have we seen over the years many successful ball strikers take a backswing like this?
You don't see that.
Okay, I'm not gonna have any time to do anything to create speed, to create any of the geometry, right?
Yep.
So now turn your hips more than normal. Okay, that's probably actually better for him than what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
So the idea behind why turn the pelvis? We talk a lot about shoulder turn. Shoulder turn's technically like this, right? This is my torso moving.
Yeah.
But the pelvis facilitates, you got this ankle and then you got this knee and you got this pelvis. So the interaction we'll be able to create with the ground allows us the safety to know that we can get through bigger ranges of motion. So you watch Cameron and how much that pelvis turns and almost how much their hips go towards the target.
Yep.
And then you watch Nolan Ryan and it's almost identical. So as human beings, through evolution, we have learned to generate force and speed through a function of having a phase of stretch having a phase of counter rotation. So what I mean by stretch is that all the stretch in the left side has happened by the time the arm is past the diaphragm, okay? And then in transition, everything above the diaphragm stays this way, and everything below the diaphragm gets back on top of itself. Well, from that point, the move of power is to go into extension. So for the most part, you know, we talk about keeping our butt back and being open, but the Hall of Fame is full of people who extended early.
Nicholas, Payne Stewart, I mean, just...
It's a long list.
Yeah.
So that's not really a death move.
Sure.
So to me, if someone comes to me for a lesson, I have to put my finger on what the tumor is. And the tumor normally is a lack of movement. Okay, now set up again, Ryan. So now what I want you to do, and you'll see it from down the line, is just take it really upright with a super cup left wrist. Okay. So from here with the face that open, with the hands and arms way too above where the club needs to move on the way down to get the natural squaring. From here, as Ryan starts down, he's gonna be like this. So that's our everyday Pro-Am player.
Yeah.
So yes, I've seen world-class players upright with an extended left wrist or a cup left wrist with the face open, but it's quite rare.
Yeah.
So the key component of being a good golfer is knowing how to use your hands and arms and release. So there's 2 points right there. If this doesn't move, you're going to struggle, unless you have incredibly freaky rotation somewhere else. If you're super upright with the left arm in front of you, you're gonna have to do a lot of things to get it back down to where you can rotate from. So set up again for me, Corby. Take it to the top and get it super narrow with both arms. Just super narrow. There. Have we seen many great ball strikers with their arms like this? I mean, your arms are straight at impact. So you have 2/100ths of a second to straighten your arms there. In order to do that, you're gonna have to create forces and torques into this club. And then if you don't apply those properly, your body's gonna go all over the place, right? So set up for me there. We talk a lot, Chris, in golf about left arm straight. If you look at great ball strikers, you won't necessarily always see that. But what you will see is that the right arm and that right elbow is straightening a lot faster. So it's gone from getting the weight of the club in a place to where I can basically swing it and throw it. And that's what it wants to do, because this is heavier than this. So I know we can see, you know, Victor Hovland and some of these young guys, and they get it up to here and they come down and they're able to rotate and side bend and look like they're holding the face. If they did, the ball would be going over there.
Yeah.
But that's not for the people watching Swing Expedition.
Sean, you've had an amazing career coaching golf, taught some of the best players in the world, arguably the best player of all time, Tiger Woods.
Definitely the best, yeah.
Do you have a breakthrough moment that you can identify?
I think the breakthrough moment for me was just when I was able in 2006, after a lot of hard work, to get a visa to come and work in Orlando at Orange County, where we first met. I was able to leave everything in Canada. My wife and I came down. She quit her job, I quit my job. We took this giant leap. It probably, to everyone around us who loved us, they probably thought we were making the biggest mistake of our life. But I really felt strongly that I was gonna do what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And so we moved down, took a massive pay cut, I mean thousands of percentages, and started this junior academy. We had 2 kids to start. I was back to waiting tables again after not doing it for 7 years, but I was gonna do whatever I had to do. And then the extension of that breakthrough moment was after I put myself in position in November the 2nd of that year, when I moved in August 16th, I got a phone call from Stephen Ames. And Stephen Ames had just won the Players' Championship, but his back was hurting a lot. And so he believed that it was kind of technical. Stephen had a high left arm with a bowed left wrist, and then kind of slid under it, and it was amazing though.
Yeah.
But basically I knew he needed a little more speed, he needed to get the ball more up in the air, and we did some of the things that we presented earlier in the show. And so Stephen, after 3 days, decided to work with me, and from Stephen came Sean O'Hare, from Sean O'Hare came Hunter Mahan. Well, back again, Justin Rose came from Sean O'Hare, and then from Sean, Hunter, and Justin came Tiger. If I don't get the visa, then none of it happens. So that's the breakthrough.
Sean, one of the things I think you're great at is distilling a lot of complex stuff into simple, usable things. What's maybe something that golfers can do watching that will kill many birds with one stone?
Well, I think as we discussed earlier, right? If you look at all these backswings that we see on tour, you'll see differences. But I think for the most part, when you get from rib cage to rib cage, there's a lot of similarities. And so people will look at Jim Furyk, and he's kind of all over the shop in his backswing, but when you fundamentally slow his swing down from hip high to hip high, it makes sense that he's 4th on the all-time money list and one of the best iron players to ever live. I think because of society and how we get a little too much into vanity, looks are more important than actual function. And so something functional to me, something I've always done, I've thought's important, is I just always called it the 9-to-3 drill. People might call it a punch shot. You see Tommy Fleetwood do it a lot. And so the idea in this drill is, what are we trying to accomplish from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock? So if we look at impact, so set up for me, we don't see many great ball strikers with tons of that. But I think if you look at a lot of the great ball strikers over time, when they get to impact, the shaft is pretty close to where it started. Give me a backswing, 3/4. Okay. So Ryan's tendency is he likes to get the club set too much. So remember, all this angle right here, he's gonna have to get rid of it, but he doesn't have much time, okay? So in the punch shot, I don't really like to talk about too much wrist hinge. One, because I think it doesn't help with the stretch phase as much. So when I take it back, because the club head's heavier than the grip, and because it's moving at the speed it is, at some point it's gonna set, okay? So what I'm trying to do with Ryan here is, in this punch shot, is take it back into my hand, but feel like you can reach my hand, okay? So you feel that activation there?
Yep.
You feel how that's starting to get this going here? So Chris, the thing about the hands and arms, like back to Bob Toski and Jim Flick, I think the hands and arms are the GPS in a lot of what they do.
Absolutely.
So I think being able to get people an idea of where their hands and arms need to be in space just so eloquently speaks to the synergy of what the body's going to do to help promote that.
Yeah.
So we could watch golfers that come to us and they're like this and like this, but if we went with them and threw sandbags before a flood, they would all be throwing the sandbags in a pretty effective way. And I think that's the trick, Chris, with golf, is the club's light enough that it doesn't always help us learn true human movement. I try to get every single player to become really good at hitting straight arm punch shots so they can learn how to use their release and learn how to use their pivot. So I wouldn't teach Justin Rose and Lydia Ko the same things, but they'd both be doing that.
Yeah.
So set up for me there, Corby. Okay, so reach for me on this side. Okay, so you can see from in front, he's not really shifting his weight to reach for me. He's turning into his weight shift. All right, now stay there. Okay, now on this side, feeling like you could still hit the ball in the air, reach for me on this side. So that's really it, is how far can I get this to travel? I don't think you can get that far off with that. I think when the angles start looking kind of here, and then having to get rid of it with too much over here, that's where inaccuracy comes from. Because all these things I'm doing with my hands are changing the path of the club, the loft of the club, the face of the club. So how can we kind of get the image in my mind is like Stenson in the wind? How can I create this strong looking wide base, wide move to make sure that the ball starts in front of me?
And like you mentioned at the beginning, you're not doing a version where you're holding on completely.
Lag's not a good thing unless you get rid of it.
Right.
But we're in a world where people like,
like
my buddies that I play on Friday with, they're like trying to lag it, and they lag it the whole time.
You can argue that you're only going to actually create as much lag as you can get out anyways. So it's like as soon as you start hitting a ball, you're going to lag it as much as you're able to throw it out and make contact with it. That's why so many people try to hold lag, and then when they make a swing, they actually end up throwing it.
Cameron and Wilco Neighbor have the most lag. It's because their hands are moving the fastest down and away from them. So it's happening because that club is still moving back, and then these hands are going this way, and you get this change of direction. But their ability to hit it far is because they get rid of it. So set up for me.
Yeah.
make that backswing to where there's really no hands in it. Just really stretchy, turn into your weight shift. So in counter rotation there, at this point now, Ryan's gonna still keep that club out there as this starts to return to me. And that's where we start to see that hollowed out version, right? That we're gonna see. So from there now, he's in position to do what's next. But basically, reach for me on this side and reach for me on this side. Okay, go for it. And just to let people understand, I've been coaching Ryan since he was 12 years old, and we still talk about the same things, because to become a master at anything, it basically is doing the same thing forever, right? And the same type of reps. Okay, give it again. And on this one too, Ryan, I want you to allow yourself, as you come through impact, to let your eyes go with the ball, okay?
Yeah.
So wide on both sides and let your eyes chase the ball. That's money.
Beautiful.
And the reason I say the eyes, right, is when we're born, so much of our sensory aspects in our brain are detailed to our taste, our eyes, and our fingers. When you look at Annika Sorenstam at Impact, Annika was here, Henrik Stenson was here, Dustin Johnson's here, David Duval's here, Hunter Mahan got here. And so we talk about rotation a lot. It shouldn't be obvious in golf that it's all about rotation, but where my eyes go, my body will follow. So where my hands go, my body will follow, and where my eyes go, my body will follow. So to make this into a bigger one, set up again, Corby. And what I want you to do is just allow your eyes to go with the backswing and allow your eyes to go with the follow through. When you first do this, it's totally crazy, but once you get good at it, you realize how much you limited your ability to move by keeping your head down or keeping your eyes down, right? If you're sitting there today and you're going on the range and you think keeping your head down is gonna help you, just let your head move, right? So just show me a practice swing. Okay? Do it again. So I'm gonna tilt this ear to the ground on the way back and tilt this ear to the ground on the way through, okay? And you're just reaching in both directions.
Awesome. Sean, I've known you for a long time. You've always been on the cutting edge of using technology, or whatever you can, to make your own coaching just as forward-thinking as possible. What is some technology that you trust?
I think there's a lot out there. I think all of it has its application to whatever you're trying to learn. But the beautiful thing now that's happened is that I've been fortunate enough to be an advisor and investor in a company called Sportsbox 3D AI. And so what Sportsbox have done is we're now able to take a video of a player in slow motion from 8 to 12 feet away and get really consistent 3D analysis of what we're seeing that is equivalent in its measurement to $70,000 devices. People, they kind of light up when they see these lines. Not that they're supposed to be congruent or anything, but the aha, right? You know what that's like. You're in a lesson for an hour and a half, you're getting to where you're like losing hope, and you say something and you see the eyes go boom, and now you're cruising. So what kind of technology can we use to get to the aha faster? So for me, Sportsbox 3D and AI, of course, I'm an investor and an advisor, but I don't invest and advise in anything else. That's how much I believe in it.
I'm back with Sean Foley. Sean, you mentioned counter rotation, a little bit of stretch, shorten cycle, all these things that are helping people be more dynamic, hit the golf ball farther. Do you have any drills that can really elicit that?
Well, I think that, you know, what we'll see is when we hear on TV, we hear the commentator talk about effortless power. But we know that power is nothing but effort. So it looks like they're not really doing anything, but the things they're doing to the ground and the things that are occurring inside their joints and then what they're actually doing into the club in their hands in different directions, there's a lot going on. What we're gonna do here with Ryan is one of the drills that I did with all of my kids. Like I said, I called it a drill, but I come to learn over time it's more about human movement. So Ryan, if you give me the club for a sec. What we know, Chris, is that a player starts left, they go right, and then they get left again. So the idea of you know, watching baseball players or even pitchers is there's a lot of movement there, but that actually helps with their accuracy. And I think you and I grew up in a time where it was all about as few moving parts as possible, because that makes a lot of sense on having less variables.
It sounds good, but doesn't necessarily pan out that way when you look at guys who control the golf ball the best.
100%, right? So the first part of the drill is knowing that these things occur, is starting in the position here where I set up neutral, then I start with my feet together. Now, as we talked earlier about the stretch phase, as soon as my arms have reached away and they're starting to load all the tissue, as I'm doing this, my backswing is basically done. A friend of mine, Kevin Duffy, used to tell me that he thought the backswing wasn't done here. It was when everything started changing directions. So because the club had some momentum and some speed, we'd see it still going back, but everything was already starting to go back this way, at least from under the belt.
Yeah.
Okay? So starting here and going into this position, as soon as I've got to this point, I'm starting to step back. And as I do that, this is still going to be stretching, but now I'm stepping back and I'm starting to create a real stretch along these fascial slings. And as I'm doing that now, some of the forces that I'm going to create are going to start to rotate my hip and get me to stand up. So in the drill, as the player starts like this, just do it at slow for first, whereas I start from here, and now as I take it back, I step, and then I hit. So that's the first part. Then you can get to where you progress it into where there's more intention. So I can start over here and do it using some of the momentum from here to take me back. As soon as those arms get across me, then I'm gonna step, and I'm stepping again. And then I think being able to get people to kind of start here, take it back, and then get to the top and be more Nolan Ryan. So can you learn, and I do it in bare feet to really learn how to use the ground, but from here is taking it to the top and being full Nolan Ryan and then stepping and going there. So what happens is, because I've gone this way so much, I've got so much room to make great things happen everywhere else, whereas if I haven't gone much, I'm kind of already in that place that I need to get to. So the good thing for Ryan, how this helps Ryan, is that Ryan tends to have too much drag. And so if I'm dragging it and moving this way, it causes a problem, because if the hands are the GPS, if I'm gonna make my hands go in this direction, there's a good chance that I'm gonna go this way too. So I'm looking for Ryan to be able to go this way, but stay here. I don't want everything to go. So for Ryan, the idea of really releasing it and getting rid of it as he's trying to pull it with his body is like so good for him to do. Money, absolutely. That, I mean, I don't know if you can hit it better than that.
Yeah, that was good.
Now go full Nolan Ryan.
But this is great. I mean, it just looks effortless. Swing speed's getting ramped up on the full swing launch monitor.
And so this is kind of, I think Bob Toski called the Fred Astaire drill, right? So we talk a lot, you hear commentators talk about rhythm a lot. Rhythm is the summation of all these things that are preceding it. Like Fred Astaire had great rhythm, but he also had super good dancing technique. If I'm ever on the range using the word tempo or rhythm, I know I'm missing it, because I know when I get other things to happen properly and create this synergy between the club and the hands and the arms and the torso and the pelvis and the legs and the feet, all of a sudden the rhythm is right there.
Yeah, it's much more of an effect than the cause of it all.
Now just give me a normal one where you're kind of intrinsically feeling these things, right? And that's why I think, look, the future in golf, to some extent in training, has to be more martial arts and more boxing.
Yeah.
Because these are primal movements that really, I don't think it would have taken you and I very long to get Bruce Lee to hit the ball beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? But it'd take us a lot longer to be able to do karate like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Gorgeous, bud.
Beautiful.
So I think that's the type of thing that somebody can do at home to help them out, but just do it at home, because the problem for a lot of our viewers, as much as we love golf, we sit too much. We're in this position too much.
Yeah.
And when we look at these fluid, beautiful golf swings of all time that we like the most, the Mickey Wrights, the Sam Sneads, the Fred Couples, these are movers.
Yeah.
These people are able to move. It's easy to look at a position and say, you know, get there, but if that person intrinsically doesn't have the strength or mobility to do it, then it's kind of a net zero.
Yeah. Great stuff, Sean. Thanks, Corbin. Appreciate that.
Of course.